Let's talk about some requirements about where to mount your solar. We're going to mount it up here on this roof, and there's several things I've learned the hard way. As you can see, I've already got one rail in, and in that process I learned a few more things that they don't tell you about. Okay, so this is our roof area. It goes like this, around here, over there. And so let's go examine some of the details about where you're going to mount your solar panels. Your solar panels are going to produce the most between about 8 o'clock in the morning, which is where I'm looking. The sun will be there at 8, and about 4. So you want to make sure that you have, that'd be about 4, an unobstructed view of the sky, and there's towards the south. So there's no big trees, no big buildings, something like that that's going to cast a shadow over your solar panels, because even a small shadow can cost you a lot. I'm going to have this shadow right here until about 8:30 in the morning, in which case it'll disappear. Not too bad as a permanent thing, but that's one of the issues, is make sure that you do not have trees or building shadows or such where your solar panels are going to be mounted. Another factor to consider about your roof is it going to be able to handle the weight of the solar panels, plus the snow loads, rain loads, dynamic loads like wind, static loads again like snow. This is not a DIY type of thing. You're going to have to get information from someone who knows. Fortunately, we have an architect in the family, so they can clue us into whether the structure underneath here can hold up the load, but that's also important. Another factor that I've never heard anybody talk about is you have this roof up here. You're going to put solar panels that are guaranteed for 25 years on there, but is the roof underlying the solar panels going to hold up for 25 years? So you can see here I need to replace these and those, and you can see out there I've already replaced that. I found it when I started doing this railing, the first mounting rail. So I need to replace these because these aren't going to hold up another 25 years, and you want to make sure the underlying roof is going to be there as long as the solar panels, because the last thing you want to do is pull up your solar panels and redo it all. You're going to need to make sure that your underlying structure is adequate to mount these solar panels. My solar panels weigh about 24 kilos each, so 4 of them weigh roughly 100 kilos, and that's roughly 220 pounds. So you need to make sure that your roof is going to be able to handle that static load, and again you got to take into account snow load, other static loads like snow load, dynamic loads like wind. So yes, again we have an architect in the family who's told us that yes, this is adequate for that, for the 8 panels we're going to put up. It's a really good idea to draw out your area where you're going to mount your solar panels as carefully as possible, because it can save you a lot of headaches. I nearly made several mistakes. For example, I found out that the joists, the roof joists, are non-standard distance apart, and the tile overlaps are a non-standard distance apart, which means I could not use a special type of bracket that would have made the job a lot easier. So yes, my contractor made several mistakes in the roof. Another one is the slope goes from here to here, which is from east to west. Normally you want the slope to run from north to south, but because he used such a small non-standard slope, it's not going to cause me much problems as far as light goes. Water runoff may be an issue, but the amount of sunlight will not be an issue. So things like this. Also, I have to be careful because where I mount the panels, you need some space in between the panels to make the electrical connections. So up through the center here, I'm going to have a half a meter of space where I can walk to make the electrical connections. Not a lot of space, but enough that I can get my body in there and connect the wiring and then do any maintenance I need to do. And finally on this side, this is multiple stories to the ground. So when I'm working, I have to consider how I'm going to make the connections to the rail, connect the solar panels to the mounting rail, and not fall off the side of the building, which is kind of an important thing. So having a clear idea, having a clear picture of what's going on is very important. And down here, this last thing, this is a picture of the roof tile. This is what they look like. My space is 6 meters by a little over 4.5 meters. And the solar panels are 1 meter wide roughly, so I could put 6 across here theoretically, and I could put 2, they're 2 meters long, 1, 2, so 6 plus 6 is 12. And in theory, I should be able to put 12 solar panels in just this space, ignoring this space down here. Should be able to put 12 across here, no problem. Except that it doesn't quite work that way. Where your joists are, your underlying joists, and where you need to mount your rails will affect how many rails, your rail spacing, which affects how many panels you can put in. And also, I've got a slight overhang on this side of the house, and so this joist disappears, and I cannot go too close to this edge, and I can't go too close to this edge because of the drop-off. So I end up with a maximum of 10 panels across here. I'm only going to use 8 to make it a little bit easier, but I can only do a maximum of 10. Had I gone out and bought 12 panels, I would have had 2 that I couldn't really use for a while. So there's reality and then there's measurement, so be very careful when you lay this out. Think about the underlying joists, any space constraints, like over here on this wall, anything like that you need to think about in advance before you go out and buy your stuff. Okay, so that's another consideration, is mapping out your space and understanding your space and what that's going to mean as you go to assemble your panels.